Exclamation, everybody, and welcome back to Cube Ramblings. For me, it is a Saturday night, September the 6th, 2014. It's been an interesting week. As far as just things I've been doing on the side, things I've been trying out, and so on and so forth. I have a few things on my list to talk about. Surprisingly enough, we had PAX Prime happened this weekend, or this past weekend, and I'm kind of disappointed in everything that came out of it. There was not a whole lot there. It felt like there was more to talk about from PAX East than there was from PAX Prime anymore. And I don't know if that's just by the nature of the fact that PAX East comes so early in the year that everybody's got their grand plans, or what. I'm not quite sure. But I've been looking around for a lot of PAX news, and there has been some, but it's just not nothing really has necessarily blown my skirt up while looking at perusing all these forums and stuff. But I think I still have quite a few things on the list here that I think I can talk about, and also relay some things that I've been looking at on the side as well. I think that we'll start off here today with Saints Row. It's probably the biggest thing that came out of PAX Prime, I would say, as far as things that I'm kind of interested in. As you probably know, I play a little bit of Saints Row, but I play it. I don't record it, mostly because I've heard from various other YouTubers that it's a rather difficult game to actually put on YouTube without having 9,000 claims put against it. Also, it's one of those things where it's crazy, zany, wacky, over the top stuff, and it's but it is grindy in places, and it is long. I particularly liked Saints Row 3, Saints Row the Third. I thought that was a really good mix of stuff. I got quite the distance in that game. I have Saints Row 4. I've played it for about, I would say, 20 hours maybe. But it's I haven't gotten very far in it. I feel like it was a little too grindy for me, a little too over the top. I guess it's not that it's too over the top. It's that it's not really. There weren't as many fun things to do there, I guess, in Saints Row 4. At least I felt like there wasn't enough fun things to do. I felt like it was, it started out life as a DLC, and it probably should have continued through as a DLC for Saints Row the Third, because it just didn't feel like, even though there was a lot of content in there was enough content for an entire game. It felt like it was really stretched thin. It was like a joke that just wouldn't go away after a while. It's like you could tell the joke 5 or 6 times and maybe you'll still get a laugh, but then after that it's like, okay, you're getting a little cringeworthy at this point. That's kind of what Saints Row felt like. It felt like a joke that just had outlived its welcome. So given that, there's a couple things that have come out of there. First of all, talking about Saints Row 4, there's a port of it coming out called Saints Row 4 Re-Elected. It's basically the same Saints Row 4 game we know and love, but it has been revamped so that it can run on the latest generation of consoles, so PS4 and Xbox One, so on and so forth. So not really anything different there as far as gameplay wise, just an engine upgrade for the later console generation. Also, the Volition's really good at this kind of thing, I have to say. They released the development kit for Saints Row 4, which is basically the SDK that modders and various other enthusiasts can download and basically write mods and or total conversions of Saints Row 4 into whatever they want to do. So Volition has been very, very good with that as far as their track record goes. I really appreciate some of the things that they've done. A good example of that is Volition were the developers behind what is it? Oh man, the word was in my head and it just disappeared. The Free Space 2, and I think all of the Free Space games actually. If now I think about it, but Free Space 2 in particular, they took after it had run its course, right around I guess 1999 or so. Or even it might have even been earlier than that even. They basically said, you know what? We're just going to dump the source code out there, and they put a notice on it that said, hey, don't make money off of this, but go ahead and do what you want with this code. Here's all the code for the Free Space 2 engine, and a whole open source modding group and total conversion group, got a hold of that, and they've been running with it ever since. The entire Wing Commander Saga, for instance, that entire game that I've played, written on top of what's called now the Free Space 2 open source engine, or Free Space 2 Open, FS2 Open, which is basically that they took all the code that Volition dumped out there and said, here, have fun, and they revamped it for latest DirectX drivers, or later DirectX drivers anyway, maybe not the latest, and various other optimizations and additions to it to allow for even more modding and creativity in it, and it's quite good. I think they've as a company they've been very good with that kind of thing, from what I can tell anyway. So I applaud the release of this SDK out for various modding groups to take over. And then on top of that, probably the bigger news is that there is going to be a standalone expansion for Saints Row called Saints Row Gat Out of Hell. And it will take place just after the events of Saints Row 4, where there's a birthday party being thrown for the president, and during that birthday party, they decide to pull out a Ouija board and have a little fun with it. And one thing leads to the other. The president gets sucked into hell, and Gat and Kinsey have to go after her, or after him, I should say. and zany, crazy antics take place afterwards, with lots and lots of flying and whatnot. The developers have said that they're trying to. They're taking the normal over-the-top stance with the Saints Row stuff, and they're just kind of, where Saints Row 3 was just, being crazy for crazy's sake. Saints Row 4 was sort of like, even crazier, like intergalactic type of thing. And then this one's going to be sort of a similar thing, but it's going to be more of like a crazy Disney-ish universe. Where they take certain concepts and they take them to the zany max, I guess you could say. And as part of that, there's going to be a whole new city, of hell that you go through. It's not quite as large as the Steelport, but it's a little bit smaller than that. And it looks, from the trailers that I've seen, it looks like it most definitely looks like a Saints Row game. that's for darn sure. It also kind of, from what I'm seeing, it sort of looks like it's closer to what Saints Row 3 was, as opposed to Saints Row 4. So I might be a little bit more interested in that, particularly because of that. Because Saints Row 4, as much as I like the sci-fi theme that they went for and all that stuff, it did sort of outstay its welcome a bit. And I'm hoping that this one probably will, since it's an expansion, standalone expansion, maybe it'll be a little bit, maybe they'll rein it in a bit, but still keep all the craziness that you expect. So, I'll link you guys to the articles on that, and you can take a look at the trailer and decide for yourself if that's the kind of thing that you're into or not. I particularly don't. It's one of those games that I don't particularly think I would ever record, just because it's kind of fun to just play it and not have to worry about commentating and making it interesting and exciting and all that stuff. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. A few more things on here. I mentioned just briefly in my channel update that I've been looking at lots of games that are out there, and I kind of offhand mentioned a Puzzle Quest-y game with steampunk themes, and that game is called Ironcast. Ironcast? Yep, Ironcast. I just had to make sure for a minute I was reading the right thing there, because my eyes are kind of crossing here. Yeah, Ironcast is on Kickstarter right now. It's an indie game. It's basically, from what I can, what I've been looking at on it, and what makes me sort of excited about it is it's got a lot of the puzzle quest feel to it, but it's taken sort of to a step further, where you have it's turn-based combat with the puzzle sort of gem pieces in the center of the playing area, and above it is a bunch of actions that you can take during your turn, like, hey, fire your guns, put the shields up, and then the gems are sort of, you connect the gems in order to fuel your various actions that you can take that are above the screen. And it's got, it's a steampunk theme. It's basically steampunk mechs going up against one another, going mano a mano, and it's sort of got like almost a Jules Verne-ish feel to it, and it's got some roguelike elements to it. So there is permadeath, but there's also like the concept of you're trying to protect. I believe it's protecting France from these mechs that are coming in. And you have 14 days to do it, and so there's a series of 14 missions that you run across the map, and you're trying to win back all those territories, trying to stop the invasion from happening, that kind of thing. It looks really cool and interesting. I don't know how much. It's one of those things where it's most definitely, I would say, a casual game, and I like me some casual games from time to time, just because my reflexes and twitchiness is not what it used to be, and probably never was what it should have been. So it's kind of nice to just be able to sit back from time to time and just kind of relax and have a little bit of a more casual take on things. I have actually played Puzzle Quest back on my 360. It's probably still sitting on the 360 now as we speak. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the concept behind it, the sort of Jewel Quest / RPG elements thrown on top of it. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, this is, I need to pass an hour of time. I don't feel like, watching anything. So let's play a little game here and play this and do that. So it looks like it's got the right theme going for it and the right ideas going for it. So I'll have to see. They have 26 days left on their Kickstarter. They're only asking for, I say only because of all the high numbers I've seen, but they're only asking for £10,000, and I believe they were more than halfway there last I looked. Slightly more than halfway there. So that's good. It looks like they're going to get a healthy dose of things. It sounds like, from what I read there, that the majority of the game is probably completed, but they're just looking for some extra money, either for artwork, or it's more, I think it's probably more along the lines of they're looking for additional investment and they just need to get that initial hurdle in, which I'm seeing a lot more on Kickstarter. I'm seeing a lot more of this, we're going to do a very small Kickstarter just to generate interest, and then we'll get the actual funding that we need from a larger publisher and say, hey, look, publisher, we people are interested in this. They put up, this amount of money for it. I don't know if that's actually the case here, but it seems like it, because it feels like there's, £10,000 is not a lot of money to do anything with as far as a game goes. So either they have a game that's almost finished and they just need a little extra boost, or they're looking for that initial seed interest to get some seed money. So there you go with that. That is Ironclad or Ironcast. I keep wanting to say Ironclad. I don't know why, but it's Ironcast. You'll find that on Kickstarter. I'll leave a link to the Rock Paper Shotgun article that talks more about it and shows you some more of the videos, and then you can link to their Kickstarter from there. And so we come to 2 games. Is it 2 games? Yeah, 2 games here on my list that I'm not sure what to make of yet. The first one is called Evolve. It's from 2K Games. It's a 4v1 multiplayer game where you are a series. The four players are hunters, and one player is the monster that's being hunted. And the idea is, it has a fantasy theme to it, but it's more of a, I guess, more of a modern-ish take theme fantasy. I'm not quite sure. I can't quite narrow down art styles because I just don't have the eye for it. But it's essentially you're taking on, these 4 hunters are going around a map, and multiplayer map basically, and taking on this ginormous monster that can smash things to bits and pretty much do whatever a giant monster wants to do. The twist being that everything is controlled by players. There's no AI, as far as I know, in there. I don't know how I feel about that. There's been other multiplayer games like that that I've talked about before, where it's this sort of asynchronous multiplayer thing, and you have to, one person's the big kahuna that you have to kill, and the other 4 are conspiring to kill that. I don't know how much fun it will be. It sounds more like something that they're trying to do. They're trying to sort of position themselves as being like an e-sport, competitive thing, which may end up working out quite well. For me, when I look at games like that, I'm like, I don't know how much I would actually enjoy it myself. Being as though I've just said earlier that I'm a bit more of a casual-ish person when it comes to gaming and various related things with that. The idea of getting good at something, while it's appealing from the beginning, it's appealing from a certain perspective. It does not appeal me from I need to constantly play this game forever and ever and ever, over and over again, repetitive, and then get good at it. It's the repetitive part of it that I don't really, I have trouble myself with, because as you've seen on my channel, I jump around to a lot of different things, a lot of different genres. Well, maybe not a lot of different genres, but a lot of different games I jump around to. And it's just because I like variety. That's the way I roll. And to sit there and actually repeatedly play a game over and over and over again to the point where you actually get good at it, where you can actually get competitive at it, good enough at it to be competitive, just doesn't really have an appeal for me at all. I kind of like being a bungling idiot, to be honest with you, because at least I'm having fun. I feel like the fun aspect starts to go away when all that competition stuff comes in. But I've never been much of a competitive person, so I guess that's kind of makes sense for me that I wouldn't find a whole lot of enjoyment out of that space. But it's if that's the kind of thing you might be into, if you like the sort of things that are more geared toward the competitive multiplayer things, you might want to keep an eye on Evolve. There's not a whole lot of information on it. Like literally, I think the article I linked to gives maybe a video and about the weapons and all that stuff. It's like a dev diary video that is on the article, and then like a paragraph or two of actual wording on it, and that's all I've got. That is literally all I have. I have no idea what else it's involved with. I do have an idea that I need to stop moving around so my chair doesn't squeak, but other than that, I have no idea. So that's where I'm at with that. The second game that I'm not sure about, it's got me intrigued, which is a good thing. Not sure if it's something that I would ever pull the trigger on, but I'm intrigued enough to learn more about it. And that is called Firewatch. It's a game from a company that I've never heard of before called Camposanto. I don't know if it's a brand new company or what, but what I have heard is that a bunch of the devs and a bunch of the team that's on it are industry veterans and have done other really cool, awesome games, but I lost the link to the article that actually told me which which devs did what and what other awesome, terrific games they did were. So you're gonna have to deal with the link that I give you instead. But the game itself is a first-person graphic novel mystery thing. I don't know quite how to put it. It doesn't necessarily have the graphic novel art style, because that's sort of a hyper realized style. This looks more, I guess it looks more cel shady, but realistic. But the idea, it's kind of in the vein of, say, Gone Home, and a little bit like Dear Esther as well. Probably closer to Gone Home than Dear Esther, I would say, where you're basically a fire. What do they call them? You work for, I guess, a forestry service. I don't know what they're called, but they're basically spotters that they travel out into the wilderness of a parkland, and they go into a tower that's already been built, and they stay out there. They sort of live in that tower for I don't know, days or weeks on end. I'm not quite sure how long they actually live on there, how long they're on it, but their entire job is to basically, I guess, sort of kind of police the park, but not from a traditional standpoint that you would think of. Like, it's more of they're on the lookout for anything dangerous or any fires that might be starting, or any danger of fire, so that the authorities can be notified of it quite quickly and try to get to it before it becomes a towering inferno that's unstoppable. Because the last thing you need is an entire forest burning down, and then because at some point it's going to run into some kind of civilization, and then that's when people start dying and property starts getting destroyed. I'll let you decide which one, the more important one there, but it's so the game itself is you're taking on the role of this guy who's in the tower, and you communicate with your boss / partner over the radio. I don't know if you ever actually see her or not. The article I'm linking to actually has the devs Twitch hour-long Twitch feed that they did, where they kind of talked and answered questions about it. I didn't watch the entire feed. I just watched the gameplay footage feed of it. But it has from what I did hear, it sounded like that you do meet her like early on in sort of the prologue-ish area, and then afterwards you may or may not ever meet up with her again. You just hear her over the radio, and it's it's a story, it's a mystery, sort of unfolds as you play through the story. You do some of the mundane tasks that you would normally expect them to do, or the devs showed off the beginning of the game where you basically see a bunch of fireworks going off, and it's it's a dangerous season. There hasn't been any moisture, so the chance of a fire is high, so you need to go and hike out to the area where the fireworks were going off, and tell the kids there to knock it off, and you have to confiscate them and all that stuff. Confiscate the fireworks, that is, and all that stuff. But then, as you're traveling through the forest and everything else, sort of mysteries start happening. And what they showed in the dev video was you return to your tower and find that it's been ransacked, and then the story just takes off from there. So I, again, not sure what to make of it, because it's one of those things where, like, I look at Gone Home and I look at Dear Esther and I go, I see what you're doing there, but it's not something that I would necessarily play, right? Because it's not really it stretches the terminology of game to a level that I'm not really comfortable with. I mean, not that I'm not comfortable with it. It stretches it to a level where I kind of look at it and I go, oh, this is just art house stuff, and kind of dismiss it. Because I really have no desire to play a game that is just mildly interactive. And by mildly interactive, I mean it's move around a maze-ish like thing and hit E every so often to interact with the environment and get some kind of canned thing happen, and then move on to the next canned thing that happens, and move on to the next canned thing that happens. It's not really, to me, necessarily a game that I would have a lot of fun with. But this game seems like it has a little bit extra to it. It's got like I think what intrigues me more about this game is that it's got sort of an exploration aspect to it, where you can kind of walk around the forest a bit and just kind of stare at things if you want to. I don't know how long that will be fun to do. Hey, I'm just walking around staring at things. But it certainly has my attention piqued, more so than any of the other games that I've mentioned, like Gone Home or Dear Esther. I saw those right away and I was like, no thanks. But this one, I'm staying cautiously optimistic. I think maybe it's something I need to keep my eye on, because I have a feeling it might actually be rather fantastic, the final product. But we'll have to see. So that is that was Firewatch. Those were the two. Evolve and Firewatch were the two that I was like, I'm kind of on the fence about. I don't know whether or not these are going to be interesting or not. Another thing that popped onto my list here, and actually popped onto my list a couple weeks ago, but there's been a follow-up recently, so I'm going to actually link you to two different articles, because both of them sort of have different amounts of information that the other article doesn't necessarily have, if that makes any sense. Let me just say, if you want to get the most information you can, you probably want to read both articles. But it's called Ancient Space, and it looks and works quite a bit like Homeworld, which is why it popped onto my list of things that I need to keep a tab on at some point or another. I still have to flesh out that spreadsheet I have with all the stuff in it. I only have like a fraction of the things I'm tracking in there. But it's also, so it's a real-time strategy game. Just like in the vein of Homeworld, they've got, it's a fully 3D movement, so you can move up and down, left and right, all degrees of movement everywhere. There's also, unlike Homeworld, and Homeworld, the original Homeworld didn't really have this. They sort of did and sort of didn't. They didn't have it to the level that I'm seeing in Ancient Space, though. the original homeworld sort of had landscape kind of in space, and by that I mean it had hazards and various things that you had to sort of keep an eye on from time to time, either for positive effects or negative effects. Like nebula and asteroids to a certain extent, although the asteroids were more for a mining platform than anything else. And I can't think of really anything else. I think it was just mostly nebulas there that they had in the original homeworld. But in this one, in Ancient Space, they've actually gone to the effort of saying, no, we're going to actually put, terrain in space that is there to sort of either impede your progress or make it easier for you to hide or do other things like that. So they have like rocks there, and they have all kinds of junk floating around on the screen, and they explain it away in some kind of, they're in some kind of dark region or something like that. But it reminds me a lot of the homeworld stuff. I'm not sure what exactly they're getting at, because the way they describe it in the video, they say, oh, it's going to be there's going to be all these like missions that pop up, and you're going to do like protect this, escort this trade here, or strike this thing there, and I don't know what they're getting on with that. And I guess it's because every time I think about it, I think about Homeworld, and I know what the idea behind Homeworld was. The idea behind Homeworld was, hey, we just got, annihilated by the Taidan, and we're trying to find our ancestral home, and we're just trying to fight them off long enough that we can get there and resettle and hopefully, rebuild our forces. And the entire time you've got a mothership, the entire time you got to protect it. Everything revolves around that mothership, and you that's what you take from one mission to the next. This one, they're going for that same theme. They're saying, hey, you're going to have some kind of mothership in there. They mentioned the name of it, and it escapes me for some reason. The reason it stuck in my mind was because it was the name of something else in sci-fi it's very common. It's a very common sci-fi name. But then it's now that I've started recording, my brain is deciding not to work. But I'm not sure how they're going to pull that off. You know what I mean? Or if they're even going to try to, because the only point of reference I have is Homeworld. And in this one, it's like, no, you're just going to fight missions and do this stuff. And I don't know what the overarching story is going to be. I don't know that they even know what the overarching story is going to be. Although I would think they would, because it sounds like it's slated for a release relatively soon. I don't know if this is the one that was related. There was one that I think is set for like the 23rd or 26th of this month. I don't know if it was Ancient Space or if I'm just thinking of something else on my list here. So don't quote me on that, but it sounded like they were actually pretty darn far along with it. So it's being programmed by Creative Forge and published by Paradox Interactive. I'll leave a link to the article on it, which I'm realizing now. Oh, no, I do have it there. Okay. I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, where did I put the link to the article at? But no, it's there. So I will link to the article on it on Rock, Paper, Shotgun. Actually, I'll link to both articles, the Rock, Paper, Shotgun one and the Polygon one, because like I said, they both have information that the other one doesn't have. And it's got, in addition to all that, to what I just talked about as far as the gameplay that seems like it's going to be in there, they've also got a star-studded cast of voice actors going into the game. That is star-studded if you're as familiar with sci-fi as I am. So I'll read off some of these names, and we'll see what we can pull out here, find out who is the sci-fi geek and who is not. So they've got John Billingsley, and I'll give you a few seconds to figure out who that is. That is from he played He played Dr. Phlox in Star Trek Enterprise. He also apparently plays something in True Blood, but I've never actually watched True Blood because the vampire thing is just overdone and I can't deal with it anymore. Vampires and zombies to me are so overdone, I just can't deal with them anymore. That and werewolves, yeah, kind of, I guess. I do. A guilty pleasure is I do watch the Underworld movies quite often when they're on, but that's mostly because Kate Beckinsale is just a hottie. I can't help myself. I am a guy at the end of the day. So John Billingsley, Aaron Douglas, he was from Battlestar Galactica. He played the Chief on there. Chief. Now I've forgotten his name, his character's name, but he played the Chief on there. He played the Chief of Engineering on there, on Battlestar Galactica, on the remake of Battlestar Galactica, not the original series. Ron Glass, he played Shepard Book on Firefly. That one I remembered. Chief something, because Aaron Douglas was the Chief, and then he was, well, spoiler alert, he was also one of the Cylons. So, yeah, he was one of the last five. Oh God, my brain, it's the gears are just grinding right now. Whatever. So yeah, Ron Glass from Firefly. Richard Gunn. This one is going to be a difficult one for most people to remember. It was a difficult one for me to remember. If I didn't have the cheat sheet in front of me, I probably wouldn't have known him either. But he played in Dark Angel. I believe, if I remember correctly, he was the handler in Dark Angel to the chick, whoever her name is. I can never remember her name. I believe he was like the handler for her. So that's a thing. I guess it's one of those things where you'll know him when you see him, I guess, but you won't see him because you'll just hear his voice. So I guess you probably won't know him then. Oh, he was wheelchair bound. He was a wheelchair bound guy that was the handler for her, and I just don't remember his character's name. Dina Meyer, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. Dina Meyer. She played in Starship Troopers, which is another guilty pleasure movie of mine. She played Dizzy. Now, if you're not as well versed in Starship Troopers, the movie anyway, as I am, I can probably describe her in a different way, and I can say, if you don't know who Dizzy is from the character Dizzy, she was, I'll just say these three things. Tent scene, topless, redhead. And now you probably know who it is. She also apparently, she was also on Saw, and she was actually sawed in half on Saw, so that was kind of depressing. And apparently she played in Star Trek Nemesis, which now that I think about it, I think she was one of the Romulan commanders in Star Trek Nemesis, which is a movie that I try very hard to forget even exists, particularly as a fan of Data. So there you go. And to round off the sci-fi voice actors here, we got Dwight Schultz, and you probably know his name, quite more familiar than any of the other ones. He played in Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Voyager as Barclay, Lieutenant Barclay. He also was on the A-Team way back in the day, so you probably know him from one of those things. He was, what was his name? It was a crazy name, because he played a crazy character, a loony crazy character on the A-Team. Was it Murdoch? Murdoch? Yeah, I think it was Murdoch. I think was his name, if I remember correctly. But it's, we're now going back many years in my brain to the last time I watched the A-Team, which was back when I was a kid. So that was, before the dinosaurs existed. So that rounds out all the information I have on Ancient Space. You might want to take a look at the links that I have left in the description if you're into the sort of real-time strategy games in the vein of Homeworld. Also, there hasn't been any more additional information that I know of about the Homeworld remastered Homeworld games. They were supposed to come out sometime this year, and I don't think there's been any information about them, so I don't know what has happened there. But a little side tangent to talk about. And speaking of remakes and enhanced editions and everything else, we got news about Icewind Dale, the enhanced edition. So it's being done by Beamdog, which have done the enhanced editions of all the Baldur's Gate titles up to this point, and in fact quite a few Infinity Engine titles they have done remakes on. The HD remakes and enhanced editions, as they're calling them, because it's not just HD visuals that they're putting in there now. They're also adding in quests that had been cut for time from the original Icewind Dale, so you couldn't get them in the original Icewind Dale. Items, spells, and enchantments that are part of the D&D 2.5 D&D second edition rules. Was it 2.5 edition rules or second edition rules? I don't remember. I think it was second edition rules. Maybe it was 2.5. I can't remember. Is what Icewind Dale worked on. Icewind Dale was the last one I think that worked on the 2.5D things, and then from that point on, it was third edition rules, or maybe Icewind Dale was the first third edition rule one. I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe there's a mention of it in the article, or one of these articles, about that. So, in other words, anyway, beside the point, they've added some spells and enchantments and items that would normally be found in the world. They've also added them. They're pretty much the same ones that they added to the Baldur's Gate franchise as well, because they would be available to the characters in that realm. So that is rather cool. And then in addition to all those things, they have also added a 6-player co-op to it. So now you can actually sit down and play Icewind Dale with 6 players, which, if I'm not mistaken, there was no multiplayer in Icewind Dale or Baldur's Gate, as far as I remember. So to be able to sit down and actually have a true co-op on a game that is that old, that didn't actually have anything but single player before, I think is rather fantastic. So if you're into the old school RPGs like I am, and you want to revisit some of these enhanced editions, revisit some of the old ones and get them, updated for a little bit more modern platforms and modern hardware and stuff like that, you might want to take a look at the things that Beamdog has done, including this Icewind Dale Enhanced Edition, and also other, the Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition things that they've done. It's scheduled to go on the GOG for $20. I think they said it's going to be in October, but it might have been this month. I don't remember. I didn't write it down, so I can't tell you. Maybe this was the one that was the 26th of this month. Whatever. I'm not good with dates and times anyway, so you know where to go to find more information, as always, on the things that I have talked about. And what else do I have here? So that pretty much takes it. I would be remiss. I'd be remiss to talk about this one. There's one last thing that I actually drug up for that's recent. I have some other things that aren't quite so recent, but are things that I've been looking at. But as far as recent news goes, and this came out at, I believe, at PAX Prime, one of the few things that I saw that actually was a new announcement at PAX Prime. Tales from the Borderlands. You're probably thinking right away, wait, isn't there like a new Borderlands game coming out, like the pre-sequel? Borderlands the pre-sequel? And you'd be correct. Yes, there is one coming out. But Tales from the Borderlands is not by the company that gives you Borderlands. It is, in fact, and I feel really bad right now because I can't remember their names. I'm just not good with names in the beginning at all. So it's, I don't know why I try anymore. No, this one, this Tales from the Borderlands, it comes from Telltale Games, which is, anybody who knows anything about Telltale Games knows that they are the ones behind The Walking Dead, and also that comic book one that I can't remember now. That's freaking names. Damn it! There's so many names to remember. I need to really write these things down instead of trying to rely on my poor memory. But yes, they are Wolf. The something of the wolf, the taming of the wolf, or something like that. The Wolf Among Us. That is what I'm thinking of. Yes, they were behind those things, which are 2D sort of cel-shaded worlds that you kind of walk through, and they're point and clicks, but they also have some action sequences in there too. Not like first-person action. They're kind of action-y sequences, and a lot of dialogue trees, and like your dialogue kind of causes different things to happen, and it's timed to dialogue and all that stuff. So they're actually taking on the task of showing off the Borderlands universe, the part of the Borderlands universe that you don't get to see in the actual Borderlands games because you're running through them so fast. In this case, they're taking Tales from the Borderlands. It takes place right after the events of Borderlands 2, or I think it's right after the events of Borderlands 2. So you're on Pandora. It follows the progress of two characters called Reese and Fiona. One is a native of Pandora. The other one is sort of a transplant of some kind. And it basically shows all the interactions that you don't normally have in the Borderlands game. Like in the Borderlands game, it's like you have basic interactions, but most of the time you're just shooting and killing stuff, which is where the fun of it comes from. In this one, it's more of, well, let's show you like how normal people, non-vault hunters, go and interact with all these gangs and groups, and how they deal with various situations that they have to deal with as far as their normal life is concerned. And it's all considered it's all canon as far as, was it Gearbox? Does Gearbox do Borderlands? Maybe. It's all canon as far as that is concerned, as far as the world is concerned that was built around for Borderlands 2. So I think it takes place just prior to Borderlands 2, maybe. Somewhere along that. Somewhere in that realm. So from what I've seen, I haven't played any Telltale games. I've been watching them on YouTube because a lot of times they're just games that I wouldn't normally be into anyway. Wolf Among Us looks kind of cool, but it's not something I'm really into. The Walking Dead I'm not really into at all because it's another zombie thing that I can't stand. I'm not into the TV series, of that. But this one, I might have my arm twisted to look at this one. That said, the quality of the Telltale games is really good. The story writing and everything else. From what I've watched on YouTube, it's really good story writing. So it's one of those things where now they're into the sci-fi realm and they're into something that I kind of actually like. I haven't played Borderlands, but I've watched enough people play it that I kind of know what's going on in there. I can speak like I have played it, sort of. This actually appeals to me. So if you're the type that likes playing Borderlands, the game Borderlands, and you like the story behind it, you want to get a little bit more story out of it, you might want to keep your eye on Telltale Games and see what they managed to pull out of their coffer, because everything they've done so far has been, as far as I know, has been gold. So it's that goose keeps on giving. It keeps on giving. The next thing on my list GOD Factory Wingman. I have been following this one off and on for a while because it's right up my alley. It's a space combat game. It's multiplayer, which is, you know, I've been doing the Star Conflict stuff, so I'm kind of a little bit more comfortable with the multiplayer stuff now. But they've had a rough go of it. I mean, they've had a really rough go of it. These devs have been very persistent enough to see their vision come through. Hopefully it's actually fun. I don't know yet. I actually purchased this. It's out on Steam now. The full version of it. It's not early access or anything like that. It's full version. Was it free to play or did I purchase? I think it's a purchase. It might have been free. No, I think I purchased it. Wait, let me let me check real fast here because I happen to have Steam open at this moment. And it's, where is it at? Here it is. I sorry about this. I'm usually a little bit more prepared, but I think this is a pay. Yeah, it's $20. $20 on Steam. And it's you know, it is what it is. I haven't played it yet. I actually purchased it because it's been on my radar for a long time and I want to see what it's like. The idea behind it is you are fighter pilots. It's all multiplayer co-op, well, multiplayer PvP. So there's 4 people on your team and 4 people on the other team. It's 2 motherships, basically 2 capital ships fighting each other. You are the fighter craft that launches off the ships, and your job is to go over and pick off the various turrets and other, you know, targeted subsystems of the enemy ship, and basically, you know, get the enemy ship down to a point where they can no longer operate and they explode into a million pieces. It's pretty, I mean, that's about as straightforward as you can get. I don't know if there's any other modes to it. I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and play it. Like I said, it's had sort of a storied past to where, you know, they've had a lot of problems. They had 2 failed Kickstarters. And then they finally were able to get some funding from Namkai Bando, or Bando Namkai. I can't remember which way they do it now anymore. Or Bandai Namco, I should say, or Namco Bandai. They finally got them to publish it, so they could actually make it out on Steam, and actually make it out to the players. So yeah, I don't know what to make of it yet. I've seen videos on it. It was enough to pique my interest in it. I don't know how much staying power it has, because honestly, they had 2 failed Kickstarters, which is a big red flag for me, even though I plugged $20 down on it already. And the devs themselves have even said that the thing that's going to make or break this game is the community around it. And if they can't form a community around it, which seems to have been the case for a while here, then it's just going to die. It's just going to die on the slab. So I'm going to jump into it at some point. I've been doing a lot of jumping into various games on the side here, trying to find new and exciting stuff. More so than usual. I've just been, you know, I've been managing my time a little bit better than I have in the past. So I'm going to take a look at it soonish, and see, you know, just get a feel for it. Not going to record anything just yet. I just want to get a feel for it, see what it's like, and then maybe there'll be a recording of it. I don't know. It really depends on what it looks like, what it feels like, whether or not I'm actually having any fun with it. All those various variables are in play, very much in play for it. So that actually gets through my list for everything that I just searched for today, this week. I still have things on my list from various other weeks that I did not get around to. So we'll start off with some of the games that I have been, as I just mentioned, that was a good segue actually, as I just mentioned, there's a couple of games I've been looking at on the side and just trying to get a feel for them that I might actually end up doing videos for. But first of all, we'll start off with the one I actually did do a side quest video on, and that's Invisible Ink. It is a roguelike spy thriller, spy-ish game with kind of an XCOM-ish thing to it. That is my explanation of it. It's actually a hell of a lot of fun. I'm actually enjoying it more than I thought I would, to be honest with you. Because I do play lots of roguelikes, but a lot of them are just kind of old hash after a while. And this one, I feel like I could play some more of it. It is very, very difficult. It's basically you are running a spy agency, and you have 7 days to, I think it was 7 days, to do as much damage as you can before taking on this other rival corporation that's trying to muscle its way in and do some dastardly deeds. So it's very, very difficult. They've actually patched it where it's got a different mode now. It's got like a simpler, easier mode that's not quite as difficult as the one that I've been playing on normal. And then they kind of made normal a little bit harder for some reason. But I really like it. It's got the nice mechanics to it where you have to sort of walk around and you're sneaking around a procedurally generated map, and you need to find the exit to it. You need to find the elevator. But along the way, you want to steal as much information as you can, but you have to, it's a risk-reward thing you got to balance. And let me tell you, I'm really bad at balancing it because I die very, very often in that game, mostly because I've already seen the elevator, but I'm off trying to grab as much loot as I can. I'm very, very greedy, apparently. But I had a lot of fun. My side quest video, actually, normally I try to keep the side quest videos to about half an hour. I actually went almost a full hour with it because I was having so much fun and I was getting to see a lot of the different mechanics of the game. Because it's procedurally generated, you don't always get to see all the mechanics at once. And the 2 runs that I had actually started to show off a lot more of the game than what I had seen previously. So that's why I kept on rolling, kept on running and recording. So yeah, that's a thing. I'll leave a link to Invisible Ink so you can go take a look at it. It's on Steam Early Access. I don't remember how much money it is, but it's I think it's $15.99, but it's going to go up to $20 once it's released. I don't know when it's going to be released. I think they're still a long ways away, but it's something to look at if you're into the roguelikes and you're into the spy stuff. I'm kind of into both. The reason that it really intrigued me is because of the spy novel kind of thing in it. I like the spy games. I like the turn on spy games. So it's that's one more feather for your caps. But having said that, I think that'll just about do it for this week's Cube Ramblings. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will see you next Sunday.